having a look at the bunting for the Christmas Fabazine, and what you'll get within there is you'll get 6 different flags, and you'll get 2 of each, so you've got 12 in total, and you'll get a huge piece of bias binding included in the kit as well, and that piece of bias binding is what we're going to use to string them all together. So all I've done is taken that bias binding over to the ironing board and pressed it in half so that I can sandwich my flags in between there before I stitch. Now, as I said, it's a huge piece of bias binding, so with top tip for bunting is to actually fold the whole thing in half and just press that a little bit to mark the centre, because there's nothing worse starting at one end, working your way along, and then realising that you've either run out of space or you've run out of bunting. So what we're going to do is start from the centre and work out from there. Now I would recommend a 3 centimetre gap, sorry, should have turned the phone off, 3 centimetre gap between flags. Now the way that you can do this is pop that first one in, that's my centre point, so I'm looking for 1.5 centimetres from there, and I'm trying to alternate these with light and dark as well. So we'll pop that one in. Whatever gap, I mean, we recommend 3 centimetres. You can have as big or as small as you like, just be aware of the amount of tape you've got included in your kit. So I'll pin those 2 in place, and then whatever my distance is there, that is the same distance that I need between all of them. So what I tend to do is cut myself a little guide, maybe just a little bit of cardboard that's that shape, and then I can just use that as a quick guide rather than having to measure every single time. So I shall go ahead and pin all these in place, and then I'll join you on the sewing machine to show you how to stitch it together. My bunting is all pinned. Now my pinning is quite sloppy, I'll be honest. If I was doing this properly, I would put a pin in either end to secure where I'm starting and where I'm finishing. I've just cracked one in the middle. Half of them aren't even pins. There's massive needles, there's paper clips in here, there's all sorts just to hold it together. But before I went to the machine, I just wanted to show you the little template that I made. So I just used a scrap of paper that I had lying around and just made a template that was the right angle and then flat at the top. And then every time I move along, I used that same little template to make sure that the spacing between each of them was the same. So now I'm going to take it over to the machine. So let's pop that in there, and I'm going to stitch all the way along, but I want to stitch right close to this edge here to make sure I hold everything in. So I'll just reset the camera. So we want to stitch as close to this edge as we can, but far enough in that we guarantee we're going to catch both edges of this bias binding. So on this particular machine I can actually step my needle across. Now if you can do that, that's better, because you're going to get more of this binding under both of those feed dogs, which is going to help it move through more smoothly, because if you're only catching one of those feed dogs, what will tend to happen is it'll tend to kind of turn as you go through. So because I can step my needle across, I'm going to put it there and just offer up the needle, check I'm happy with the position, and then away we go. Now because this is actually, before I start, because this is such a long piece and we're wanting the full edge of the binding to be used, so we've got a little kind of tie at the end here, I'm actually going to start right up that top end of the binding, and I'm just going to use the edge of the foot as a guide against the edge of the binding to make sure that everything stays nice and straight. And the bunting is as simple as that. If you noticed in the beginning, I haven't stabilised any of these, I have just cut them straight out. Now that's fine for somewhere where you're going to, maybe just hang it out every Christmas. But if you're going to make your own bunting and it's for more frequent use, so maybe you're going to have it out all the time, or maybe it's something that you think you may wash, then I would definitely advise either stabilising these or binding the edges of your bunting flags as well. But that is the Christmas bunting from the Fabazine complete.